if you go to a mom and pop shop and say, hey, bring your own identity, they're just going to be looking at you like, yeah, sure.
Here's my driver's license.
Exactly.
Or here's
my passport.
Yeah.
Have fun, right? And then it is the matter of how do you actually control who has which accesses in your system. So let's say you onboard a partner. They are predominantly doing some infrastructure project for you. How do you ensure that that project doesn't give them access to confidential information? If you have a milk supplier who brings in fresh milk every day, right? How do you make sure that they have access to their sales numbers and all that, but can't see the competitors' information? Mm-hmm. So yeah.
So Emailer was on the stage yesterday. She talks about treating identity as a product, right? Because
Yes.
you have all these different stakeholders who want different things and essentially become a product manager. You know, you're a security practitioner in one sense, but you're also thinking about marketing and the customer experience and prioritizing that.
Yeah.
Did a lot of what she talked about yesterday ring true from your perspective of how do I balance all these stakeholders to get to what I'm going to be releasing next month from an enhancement perspective? How do you keep up with the authentication or the delegated administration or, hey, the users are having a problem with this? Like, how do you balance all that?
This is Identity at the Center. If it has anything to do with IAM, this is the go-to podcast. Now your hosts, Jim McDonald and Jeff Steadman.
Welcome to the Identity at the Center podcast. I'm Jeff, and that's Jim. Hey, Jim.
Hey, Jeff, how are you?
Oh, not so bad. Yourself?
Doing great. We're at EIC 2025, Berlin, Germany.
We made it to the stage.
We made it to, we're on the keynote stage here, right?
We are on the keynote stage with an audience of literally 4 people, I think.
People,
yes, exactly. Yeah, good time. So thank you very much to Marina, who is just over there behind the camera. Gave us a thumbs up for helping us set this up. Obviously, Martin for inviting us out here, and it's been a great conference so far. For first time being in Berlin, first time being at a EIC.
Should be no surprise. This is one of the best organized conferences I've ever been to. Everything's like clockwork, and you know me, the snacks. Mm-hmm. Let me do a rating of the snacks right now. Fantastico. The cooler with the soda pop.
That's the highlight for me because I don't drink coffee, I don't drink tea, but if there's cola or something like that where I can get my caffeine fixed, orange soda, thumbs up for that.
Yeah.
I will say I'm so far been disappointed by one thing, and that is the lack of cookies. Everyone knows I judge a conference on the quality of their cookies, and I have not seen a cookie yet. Maybe they'll make an appearance. This is only a day.
2 different cookies.
Here?
They're over by the coffee. Okay. That's the problem.
Okay.
You're not a coffee drinker.
Okay. All right. I stand corrected. Apologies to
wonderful butter cookies this morning. Oh, you missed out.
Okay.
Mwah.
All right. Why don't we get into it? Because we have our gentleman guest sitting here next to us. He is Jerome Thorstenson. He is the IAM Architect with Salling Group. We're going to find out what that means. But welcome to the show.
Thanks. So thank you guys for having me. It's been a pleasure to meet you in life. A long-time listener, so I was really psyched when you guys reached out and asked me to come on the show.
Well, we're so appreciative of you taking the time. I know that this is a busy time. You're going to be giving a presentation, I think, later this week. We're going to talk about that. But if you're a listener, you know what our first question is going to be.
Oh, yes.
How did you get into identity? Is it something that you chose, or did it choose you?
I think we kind of trauma bonded, identity and I. So back in the day, I started out as a techie. I was heavy into infrastructure, servers, network, firewalls, all that stuff. And if you asked me like 10 years ago if I saw a future in IAM, I might have been smiling and saying, nah, that's just user management, right? Then I got on board doing cybersecurity, did a pen test on a fairly big international client, and to my horror, I was like 5 minutes in doing an enumeration on Active Directory, where I started pulling out passwords and clear text in the description fields and found custom attributes with initial password set.
So people always hear about this story, right?
Yeah.
Oh, there's clear text passwords.
Yeah.
It is legit. It happens in real life.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. To this day, it still happens.
So for people not familiar with Salling Group, give us a little bit about what Salling Group is. And I just realized my microphone was like over here, so I'm going to try and make this a little bit better for me.
Yeah. So Salling Group is kind of a fun size. So to compare it for the US listeners, it is kind of like having a parent company that operates Target, operates Nordstrom, operates Aldi, Trader Joe's, stuff like that, right? So we have 5 major labels that we fully own, and then we do franchises for stuff like Starbucks. We do some flowers, food delivery service, fresh fish to your doorstep, stuff like that. And we are located in Scandinavia. So we have the HQ in Denmark. We are represented here in Germany, Poland, and we just acquired Remy Baltic. So now we're in the Baltics as well, heavily.
So it's a small company, is what you're trying to say.
Yeah, small company, 72,000 employees.
Oh, that's it.
Yeah.
Chump change. All right.
Yeah.
So tell us about, you're here to present, you'll be on this very stage
Yes.
Friday, right?
Yeah.
And you're going to be talking about securing and navigating B2B. So
Oh,
that's
yes.
your focus within the identity space. Well,
Yeah.
tell us about that presentation. What is the main topic?
Oh, I'm going to be standing here on stage and sharing my pain points with managing B2B. So basically, it is all about how do you take your supply chain and making sure that they are just as compliant and as secure as you are, because it comes down to trust at the moment. Then we have the NIS2 hitting us. It just got passed as a law in Denmark like 2 weeks ago or something like that. So it is the whole, how do you fast track an NIS2 implementation? How do you make sure that you have cybersecurity resilience within your supply chain? And how do you onboard and offboard vendors? Because we have everything from small mom and pop shops to big corporate galemats.
I noticed that the title of your presentation starts with identity first, which
Yes.
I think really means identity at the center. I think they're somewhat interchangeable. Feel free to disagree with that. But why did you start the presentation title Identity First?
Well, because I'm a strong believer that the identity first approach is the key in this modern tech stack we work in today. I mean, we don't have any perimeters anymore. We moved everything, or slowly moving everything to the cloud. So that perimeter is long gone. And that's why you need to kind of look at, so how can I manage security? And what are the stuff I can deal with, right? So for us, it is definitely identities. We can manage and control access on identities and on devices and all that more easily today than just applying the old logic of perimeter first, right?
So there's a lot of, I guess, struggle sometimes where you have these external partners and I guess, how do you make sure that they're on board with what it is that you're doing? So, it's a challenge. You've set up this, maybe it's a federation, or maybe you're setting up SAML or OpenID Connect or whatever it may be, but you're still reliant on the vendor, the partner, the B2B side of things, or whatever it may be, to actually hook up
Exactly.
and then follow your own policies and standards. How do you essentially train your partners to do it that way with you?
Oh, it's a headache. It's a big headache. No, so you usually, if you look at retail, we are really good at doing something like private label or white labeling stuff. So instead of a fully onboarded partner, we could potentially say, let's say we have a line of products that we sell at a discounted price because it's our brand. But all the product descriptions and everything we get from whoever made the product. So we would like to onboard them and say, okay, so if any product changes happens, then you have the ability to go in and edit this in, I won't say real time, but close to real time, right? And the thing here is, for a big company or supplier, it is easier for them to hook up to doing single sign-on or SAML or something like that, right? And that's perfectly fine. But if you go to a mom and pop shop and say, hey, bring your own identity, they're just going to be looking at you like, yeah, sure.
Here's my driver's license.
Yeah, exactly. Here's my passport.
Yeah.
Have fun, right? And then it is the matter of how do you actually control who has which accesses in your system. So let's say you onboard a partner. They are predominantly doing some infrastructure project for you. How do you ensure that that project doesn't give them access to confidential information? If you have a milk supplier who brings in fresh milk every day, right? How do you make sure that they have access to their sales numbers and all that, but can't see the competitors' information? Mm-hmm. So yeah.
So Emailer was on the stage yesterday, and she talks about treating identity as a product, right? Because
Yes.
you have all these different stakeholders who want different things, and essentially become a product manager. You know, you're a security practitioner in one sense, but you're also thinking about marketing and the customer experience and prioritizing that.
Yeah.
Did a lot of what she talked about yesterday ring true from your perspective of how do I balance all these stakeholders to get to what I'm going to be releasing next month from an enhancement perspective? How do you keep up with the authentication or the delegated administration, or hey, the users are having a problem with this? Like, how do you balance all that?
It rings true in my world. I am a firm believer that you can actually put IAM as a business enabler. So it's kind of a fun balance. You are looking at let me rephrase that. So what we are looking to do is providing our vendors with a self-service portal. So let's say you buy or get access for 10 people in your organization to have access to our system for whatever reason. We would actually prefer to give a self-service portal saying, here is the general framework, this is how we run business, and we are going to rely on you managing your employees' access. We are just sitting in the background and doing the final checks, right?
That's right. Now, Jerome, this is the one thing that I was interested in. I had a chance to talk to Eve was, all right, as the identity practitioner, the owner of identity, is it my responsibility to, kind of work with all these folks and take all their inputs, get them to work with each other and understand? Because one of the key words she had in her presentation yesterday was to get the stakeholders to empathize with the needs of the other stakeholders. In other words, marketing to understand the needs of security and vice versa, which I thought was tremendously insightful. Yeah. But I wonder, is it our job to kind of orchestrate and to facilitate all of that? It seems to fall on us a lot.
It falls on us a lot, yes. And I'm also a firm believer that it is part of our responsibility, because I believe that we are kind of in a unique situation where we understand where they're coming from and we know where they're heading and stuff like that. So we are kind of the in-between a lot of vendors and us and our suppliers, right?
Yeah.
So we're kind of navigating this as collaboration.
Yeah, right.
Well, let me put something else out there. What happens if if you don't do it, who does? If the IAM person doesn't do it,
Exactly.
who's doing it?
That's why I think we usually wind up, because I think IAM or digital identity attracts a lot of people who are
A lot of good-looking
leaders.
people.
Yeah, and identity people are the greatest. Let's just start there. No, I think a lot of people who are leaders. I think being a leader in today's day and age isn't just barking out orders. It's getting people to the table, getting them to empathize with one another, and I think it's just natural for many of us to step into that role.
Yep. So basically, leading without what's it called? Without
Leading without a title, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So no, I think there is the whole human aspect of it, and I think if you look at the classical setup where you have security, they are more compliance based. They are more. These are the rules. Stay within the boundaries we set, and go have fun. And we are kind of more concerned with, that's fine, but we also need to put a human angle on it, and be like, okay, but this will affect you in this and this way. And if it is very bad, it's typically us who's gonna be having that conversation with security and say, okay, guys, we know this is best practice, but come on, if we need to get our day-to-day jobs to work, can we relax this policy a little bit and then enforce it?
Try to negotiate.
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
So I wanted to point something else out, that you wrote an article last year, and so if folks connect to you on LinkedIn, they can see you posted it and get to the article, but it was about ABAC in the context of B2B.
Yeah.
And I think you called it a game changer, and I wanted to ask you, why do you think ABAC is a game changer, which is attribute-based access control?
Yeah. So we've all been messing around with role-based access control for years now, right? It came out in the 90s.
The struggle is real.
20 years.
Yeah, exactly. So no, my approach was, I was managing a huge stack of security groups. So if you do the classical RBAC, you have one security group that links to an application and role within the application. Now imagine you have 2,500 stores. Already you just had 2,500 security roles by default. Now add all the applications. Let's just pick a number, 1,600. We see how that spins out of control real fast, right? To put some real world numbers on, I'm managing just close to 61,000 users at the moment.
And that's just, is that everybody? Is that B2B?
No, that's core employees.
Okay.
Yeah. I have 67,000 security groups. So,
which sounds about right. You have more security groups than you have users. That's totally normal for
That's
RBAC.
normal.
Yeah.
Exactly. But if you then flip it and go to ABAC, then you're looking at attributes. So now you can do stuff more dynamically. So you don't have this rigid security group structure. You don't end up with security groups nested in security groups, because that's how we did it in the old days, right?
I can't believe anybody would ever do that. That doesn't happen.
Exactly.
You're full of battle scars here.
Yeah.
So how do you track? So attribute-based access control is obviously very dependent on attributes.
Definitely.
Data.
Oh, yes.
Data quality, data timeliness,
Yes.
all that stuff. How do you manage getting that data into a spot where you are comfortable to say, okay, attribute, we've got it, and we can automate or make policy decisions off it, whatever that may be. But talk about the data part of the attribute side and how you manage that.
Honestly, it is a struggle. So we all know the pain of having clear and concise data, right? So first of all, it's the wonderful discussion with HR on what attributes we use for what, right? Then it is in our situation where we have a third of our workforce that is 18 or younger. We also have some privacy issues, so we don't want to pull in too much information, just enough. And based on that subset of data we have, we do our very best to say, okay, how much of this can we actually control on pure ABAC? How much of this needs to be reliant on RBAC? And it's that happy mix of these two that we live in. So we can't sit here and say, oh yeah, we're purely ABAC, because honestly, I don't think it's ever going to happen. But if you have, let's say, 9 predefined roles in your organization, well, that is a perfect fit for RBAC. And then you can always tighten security and find a sweet spot with ABAC.
Yeah, this is kind of an out-of-band question for that, but I was thinking, so really you have the delegated administration, so the customers say, oh, I just hired this new person. That's got to also be, you've got to have high volume in terms of turnover.
Oh, yes.
I would imagine that's a big part of what you deal with. So let me get to my question first. So I was wondering, because most of your footprint is in Europe, so many different languages, do you do all the front end with English only? Because I would think as you get out to retail in maybe some of the more rural areas, people don't speak English maybe.
So I'm in that lucky position where we're in a company where we said our company language is English. So that makes my life a little easier.
Okay.
But fortunately, we are heavily represented here in Germany and in Poland, and they're fairly good at English. So so it's not a huge issue, but we do run into it, and then we rely on people in the store. Just to get back on the other part you were mentioning.
Younger people, right? Yeah. The high turnover.
Yeah, so we do have a high turnover. Just before summer break, we onboard something like 2,500 employees. End or mid of August, they're heading out the door again. So yeah, we actually have vendors compare us to something like universities in our approach to onboard and offboard people.
Yeah. That's got to be a busy time. No one can take vacation then, right? Oh, in Europe, that would be tough to say no one take vacation in August, right?
Oh yeah, that's not going to happen.
No, the vacation's happening, that's for sure,
exactly.
right? Yeah.
No, but I mean, I think a rule of thumb is we do something like a turnover between 200 and 500 employees a month. So it's a big revolving door.
Yeah.
How do you manage those terminations? Do you keep them around for a certain amount of time? I guess, there's probably errors that are made sometimes, like, oh, didn't mean to terminate this person, or there's a change in mind and they come back. Do you totally deconstruct the ID? Do you put it into some sort of dormant status for a little bit? How does the management of the ID behind the scenes work?
Well, that's the great thing about the GDPR. So we just lean up against the framework saying, okay, generally we keep you around for 30 days. So let's say you're terminated on your current contract because you're starting in a new store or something. So we offboard you on the last day of the month, and the night before you start again, we basically strip you down and build you up again with your new role and identity. And then we have a rule saying we don't keep user data around for more than the absolute amount of time we need it. So 30 days, give or take.
Okay.
It sounds like one of those situations where the compliance is also in line with doing things more securely. Definitely. I think sometimes folks think it's one or the other.
Yeah. No, it's you got to find a sweet spot between the compliance and usability, right? Because I mean, there's no sense in offboarding, let's say 500 on the last day of the month, just to rebuild them the day after.
Right. Yeah, totally.
Yeah, I mean, email addresses and stuff like that, you would definitely hit that magic dormant state on the email address saying, oh, it's already been assigned, you can't have your own email address back and stuff like that.
How do you handle duplicates? A number, a middle initial, different spelling of the name? I'm picking a wound here, it sounds like, right?
Yeah. Tough questions here.
Yeah. So no, luckily what we do is we say, depending on which position you're hired in, then you are given an email address or not. So if you're just stocking shelves, you might not need an email address. So that helps us a long way. But yes, we're stuck in the same situation as everybody else with your name, some random number or something, right?
Okay.
Yeah.
I want to talk a little bit about IGA because you're one of the few people that I snooped on that has done IGA twice.
Yes.
So you had an IGA product,
Yes.
and this isn't about product. This is more about the shift. So at some point, there was a decision made to say, okay, this IGA isn't meeting our needs, and we need to move to this other IGA, whatever that might be.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people are probably in this state where they're like, okay, well, when do you essentially pull the plug and say, okay, it's time to rip that Band-Aid off or do whatever.
Yeah.
Talk to me a little bit about that transition. How did you make the decision? What was the decision like? As an organization, say, okay, it's time to move from one platform to another. And for people who are out there listening, what are some tips that they should be thinking about if they're considering, that journey?
Yeah. Well, you guys are consultants, so you've seen all the fun stuff that people do to an IGA system, right? So ours was what I would consider legacy. It was around 10 plus years old, right? And they had basically mangled this system to do anything from weld underwater to brew your coffee to do your IAM.
So it's very custom then.
Oh yeah,
which means it's going to be hard to find something that's apples to apples or a straight comparison.
And I do have a consultancy background, and I love the whole concept of keeping it lean and keeping it close to whatever commercially off-the-shelf product you have, right? And I am a big advocate for keeping stuff agnostic. So if you want to go ahead and change the engine of your IAM in 3 years' time, then you should be able to swap that engine fairly easily. And that was kind of one of the drivers for this, because we were looking at a legacy product. We were looking at an organization that was moving into, I would say, a cloud-first strategy. So we suddenly were in a situation where we needed to either create custom connectors or switch a product and say, okay, should we actually get ahead of this and say, if the organization is adopting a cloud-first strategy, let's jump on that wave and see what we can actually do and what we can actually achieve and manage users in a smarter way. So if I should give a tip, then it's all about knowing what you have, and it's about looking at where you want to go, and then MVPs, minimal viable products, all the way. I mean, if you do it right, you can do a transition in like 6 weeks.
That's pretty quick.
Oh yeah, but if you know what you have and where you want to go, it is a fairly simple exercise in saying, okay, so how do I get there?
How ruthless do you need to be when you're making that transition to plan to say, we are not going to carry this over to the new system?
Oh,
Good question.
I was Mr. Unpopular. Let's just put a little bit like that. So yeah, I got very good at saying no, and I got.
So what gave you the confidence to say no, though? Because I think there's this natural desire to say yes. Let's figure out how we can do that.
Yes.
How do you say no in a way that hopefully keeps people relatively happy? What's the diplomatic response there to say no?
So the diplomatic response is you listen to their issues. You figure out with them whether or not it is something that the organization needs, and then you roadmap it. So I'm not sitting here telling everybody to give a hard no, because that's not going to fly. I would be out of a job the same day. Mm-hmm. You give them a soft no, saying it's not going to happen right now, but in phase 2, 3, 4, it might be of interest. Re-exploring this idea, right? So phase rollouts, king.
I think a big emphasis here at EIC has been on the identity fabric.
Yeah.
Right? And I feel like that's more of an emphasis maybe in Europe than the US, where maybe the emphasis is more product focused.
Yes.
Do you feel like that's true? And then what's your take on the identity fabric? Is that an important concept for you?
Oh yes, it's definitely an important concept for me. I am a firm believer that if we are smart about it and we go the identity first route, and we focus on how we manage identities and what kind of shared signals we can get, we will be in a much better place than where we are today. Honestly, I don't necessarily care about which product does what.
Right.
A vendor is a vendor. There's going to be new ones tomorrow. They are getting smarter, and at the rate that we are applying agnostic AI to everything these days, who knows what's just around the corner, right?
No.
Yeah.
Every
so-
product is like,
Oh,
you
yeah,
know, now with 100% more AI. Before it was 100% more zero trust, and before that was more, you know, whatever the security du jour term was.
Yes.
So yeah.
So whatever opened up the company wallet, right?
Mm-hmm.
And today it's AI. So
It's kind of
to your point, zero trust. And then before that, I was thinking REST APIs.
REST
More
APIs.
REST APIs.
Yeah, and it was blockchain was
Yeah,
like
oh,
the
yeah,
things
yeah,
that
for
revolutionized.
sure.
There's so many buzzwords. I want to wrap up the conversation on a lighter note here.
Sure.
I did more LinkedIn spying, and I noticed that you're from the Caribbean. How does a native say it?
well, I say it as being from the Caribbean.
The Caribbean. Okay.
Yeah.
What's the best thing about being from the Caribbean? What's the worst thing about being from that area? And for people who aren't familiar, kind of maybe explain geographically where the Caribbean is.
So geographically, I will say all the islands north of Venezuela and up towards Florida. That's kind of what I group together as being the Caribbean, right? And I would say one of the best things about it is this sense of belonging, the close relationships. It's more about the person than the job, stuff like that. The worst part is I run on Caribbean time, so what we don't fix today, we fix tomorrow, if we get around to it. So yeah.
I would think it was. I was expecting you to say flying home for Christmas costs a fortune. 'Cause everybody wants to be there then.
Oh yeah, but no, it's not too bad. So going back to the Caribbean, yes, it does cost a little, especially here from Europe, right? But if you're smart about it, then it's not too bad.
How often do you go back?
I try to go back every other year.
Every year.
Yeah, but COVID and all that kind of screwed over those plans.
Yeah. So I was actually wondering, do you have any hidden gems? I'm planning a vacation to Dominican Republic, Punta Cana. I should know how to say
What's
it.
that aspect?
Yeah.
Oh,
you
no,
tell me.
no, no, no,
There's another one to- So is that a good choice to start with? And any hidden gems?
See, now here's the trap, right? Is
Yeah.
You say hidden gems.
Yeah.
It gets out, and then it's no longer a
It's
hidden
no
gem.
longer a hidden gem, yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh yeah, with our millions and millions of
Our
listeners.
billions of yes.
Billions.
Yeah. No, I'm kind of relaxed whenever I go back to the Caribbean. So it is for me, Trinidad and Tobago is like the home base, and I'm born there. So my heart will always go towards that part of the Caribbean, right? But other than that, definitely go island hopping. There's so much to explore, and I mean, a lot of people have been to Jamaica and the Bahamas and stuff like that. But there's also other islands that has stuff that's worth seeing and experiencing.
Yeah. Sounds wonderful.
All right, well, that's a pretty good probably spot to leave it for this one. Jerome, great to meet you in person. Thanks for taking time here, being with us. I'll have your LinkedIn profile in our show notes so people can reach out and connect, maybe trade war stories, maybe you guys, can get maybe in a more of a hidden gem conversation, a one-to-one, blast it on the internet. But thank you so much for being part of this. And we're going to leave for this week. Find us on the web at idacpodcast.com. Like and subscribe, do all those fun things, right? That's what
Always.
gets us up to places like this. And appreciate it. So thanks everyone for watching and or listening. And we'll talk with you all in the next one.
You've been listening to Identity at the Center. We hope you've enjoyed the show. Make sure to like, rate, and review. And we'll be back soon. But in the meantime, hit the website at identityatthecenter.com. See you next time on Identity at the Center.